Hi, everyone. My name is Alina, and I'm the account executive here at Remedly. And I have John Gwin here from Auctus Group, who is a very special guest because he is, first of all, he's a biller, and then he's a business owner. He also uses Remedly, so he's Remedly's client, and he's also been consulting us on how to develop the RCM module. So, and John, you can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background.
Sure, I appreciate you having me with you today. Again, John Gwin, CEO of the Auctus Group. We're a financial and operations consulting firm for plastic surgeons and dermatologists. I've got another billing company that focuses on mental and behavioral health as well. But all of our service offerings are around that revenue cycle management process. And then beyond that, we really focus on working on a number of programs. So working with Remedly has been a real pleasure for us because we've gotten to give a lot of good feedback and they've actually listened, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for this intro, John. And I'm going to briefly talk about the plan for today's call. So, what we're going to be talking about today is what should the owner of the billing company focus on and pay attention to.
Sure.
We're also going to touch on how to choose the right software if you're starting your billing company. And then we'll give some tips for the billers and for those who are looking to outsource their billing. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about the software to begin with. So how can the right software change the life of the biller?
Well, for a biller in particular, whether you're working in-house or outsource, you're really looking for efficiencies. I mean, that's the key. You want to be able to move quickly and accurately and run through a system. So having a program that you're comfortable with, that you can jump from process to process, run through iterations of tasks and processes, it's all super important because your speed and accuracy are the two things that you want to move with. In terms of a billing company or a biller for a billing company, you're paid typically on contingency. So again, that time and how fast you can move accurately is tied directly to your profitability. So that's really an important aspect of selecting a software program.
Sure. Right. So how your life as a business owner and as a biller changed when you chose the right software? What kind of how did you benefit from it?
I mean, we've made a lot of not so great choices. And one of the things that's unique about our billing companies, we work in over 50 different programs. And so the discrepancy that you can see when you look at a paper solution or a manual entry solution or a not so well built solution versus a program where there's efficiencies, there's linking between appointments and billing charges and workflows is drastic. I mean, it can drive your margins 200% in certain situations. So it's incredibly important.
So I'll talk about what should the business owner pay attention to the most when it comes down to choosing the right software.
Okay. I mean, you obviously want to look at, does it have the modules that you need? Can it accomplish the tasks, chart entry, payment posting, statements, some of the ancillary processes as well? Can it handle recoupments? Can it handle a financial ledger? Does it have a process for catching charges that may not have been input by the provider? How's the reporting? There's all these different aspects, and every system's stronger and weaker in different spots. So figuring out what's most important for you and aligning that with the software program, that's really the best thought model in my opinion. Obviously, price is going to play a role in it, but
Yeah.
for me, if you're a billing company owner or you're a practice, the software is the number one tool you're going to use outside of your people and your own brain. So it's not really the place you want to be cost conservative, in my humble opinion. It's the number one tool outside of your people. So if you want to save some money, I'd save it somewhere else.
Okay. And you were talking about different kind of different things that come with different software. So is there a single solution that could be, that could cover all of your needs as the owner of the billing company and as a biller?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of programs out there that you can get the work done in. I don't think that anybody has created the perfect solution or we'd all be on it. And that's why this industry has so many different options in it. And
Yeah.
different people have different priorities. And so what's perfect for me may not be perfect for the next person. But making sure you have a solution that can cover the workflows and then looking at the little idiosyncrasies, like some people like to tab through their task and use the keyboard and use keyboard shortcuts. Other people like to click through. Having the visual layout so you can see the chronology of a claim history is super important for some people. So it's really about a bit about personal preference, and hopefully that's driving towards efficiency.
Right. Yeah. So it's all about choosing something that actually works for you and your business.
Exactly.
Now, let's summarize everything we've just discussed. So, what you should pay attention to when choosing an RCM system. Does it have all modules that you need, such as chart entry, statement posting, and others? Does it have a process for catching charges that might not have been input by the provider? Does it generate all the necessary reports? What's the pricing like? And lastly, you should figure out what's most important to your business. And let's talk about the tips for those who are looking to outsource their billing. So, what advice would you give to those companies who don't want to handle this in-house?
When you are looking for a billing company, I think it's important, obviously, to look at the contract. There's a couple things in there that you want to keep an eye out for. Outsourcing is really big in medical billing right now, meaning hiring folks that are offshore. Billing
Mhm.
companies do it pretty regularly. I don't have a problem with it. In fact, we have people on our team that are not in the US, and I'm actually proud of it. But making sure you ask that question, because there's a difference between somebody that's going to hide it and somebody that's going to talk about it. And it probably has to do with the quality of the work. And there are a lot of bad actors that just, there's a billing company shell, and then there's a BPO or an outsourced company that's a third party behind the scenes doing the work somewhere else. And I think that can become a challenge too, because when you've got a middle person between you and your people, you can't really control culture or quality of labor.
Mhm.
Um, and a fully US based company is great. It's just that it's a tougher business model for a billing company because of the cost of labor. So I'm not knocking that either, but asking, do they do that? And what are certain people doing in the workflow can be really important. That what are people doing question, I think, is also just good to ask in general, because the model may be that you've got kind of the pretty voice that shows up once a month and talks about reports and kind of gives you the song and dance, is not the person that's actually working your account. And then you can get kind of a breakdown between the gory details of what's happening and what's being delivered at the end of the month. So like, do I have a coder and then a different person for charge entry and then a different person for payment posting and then a different person for customer service? Like, all that's fine, but just knowing who's doing what and who's involved, I think is pretty important as well. Um, a lot of people are really concerned with APC certifications for coding. I absolutely think it's valuable. I do also think that it shouldn't be overvalued, because there are coders that are that may not have the certification, but it's not a requirement if you've got the right skill set and the right experience. But that's a good question to ask as well. And then making sure the coding is even included in your contract, because some companies just don't do the coding. You're fully responsible for the coding yourself, and that may not be something you feel like you can handle internally as a practice.
Mhm.
Last thing or two I'd look at on the contract termination. So how long are you with them? Does it auto renew? Do you have X days to cancel? And then if you do decide to move on, I know you don't want to come into a contract looking at how you exit, but just being cognizant of that, because a lot of billing companies have these terms called burn down clauses where you're stuck with them for 90 days or 180 days for them to work your AR on the way out the door. And it's just not necessarily something you probably want to do. If you're looking to make a change, you probably don't want to be stuck with them for 6 extra months so they can extract some more cash on the way out the door.
Mhm.
So those are a couple top of mind items.
Yeah, perfect. So basically, ask the right questions and look at the contract. It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah,
Not as simple when it comes to the action, though.
no, it's my job wouldn't exist if it was simple.
Let's summarize everything that John has just mentioned. So, when looking for a billing partner, you should pay attention to the contract, things like contract lengths, what's included, cancellation terms. You should know who is going to be doing what. Where's the team located? Who's your point of contact? And who's doing the billing? And you should ask for certification, although John has mentioned that this is not the most crucial point. Now let's talk about Remedly software. So, what problems did Remedly software solve in your company? Kind of some of the processes that it automated, things that it optimized.
Sure. I mean, for Medley, for us at the Auctus Group, where we've got a lot of practices that have cosmetic and insurance related transaction types in the system, and as a billing company, we just work with the insurance related claims, obviously, because cash pay is cash pay, and it's you pay at time of service. So Remedly's got some really nice workflows where the practitioner, the front desk both put a selection in the system that drives that claim either towards insurance or towards cash pay. And Remedly's got a built-in workflow that helps you identify that as well as identify mismatches. So if the front of house books something as a self-pay visit and the doc commits it for insurance, I can see that there's misalignment there, and I've got additional information to try to make a determination of if I should bill that. And that also allows me to catch, if I've got a client that maybe isn't great with being consistent on coding, I can find those missing appointments that are scheduled as insurance billable. So it automatically tracks basically missing charges, which is we call it schedule QA. And a lot of systems don't necessarily have a report for that or a workflow for it. I think it's hugely important because that's just money on the table for services rendered. Another thing I really like about the Remedly system is the actual claim view. So there's a chronology with transaction types for like submitted, reviewed, edited, ERA received, all the things that can happen in the storyline of a claim all in one spot. And it's really clear because in many systems, you have to kind of jump to here to see when it was submitted and run a report to see what was paid and then go to the ledger to see what's outstanding. So you have to kind of piece that together. This makes it really cut and dry if you want to write an appeal letter or just like even sleuth to like what's the next actionable step. That's another big differentiator for me.
Perfect. Thank you for elaborating on that. So, how does Remedly help you to reduce your time working with the claims and actually performing the billing processes?
Yeah, I mean the team can run through claims pretty quickly. Like it's very workflow oriented. So I go here to grab my charges, bang them out, enter them in, jump to the remit screen, post the payments there. And then you can jump to statements thereafter. There's the patient ledger, obviously. So it makes it simple for the biller to come in and accomplish those daily tasks, just really running almost like left to right on the modules, which eliminates the what do I do next in fatigue for somebody during the day, because billers are often working multiple accounts, or I've got AR here and AR here with this client, or I've got charges and payments. Where do I start? So it makes that process really simple to just run down the line of check boxes, basically.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about the business side.
Sure.
So, which indicators or metrics does the billing manager or the owner of the billing company need to pay attention to the most?
Ooh, KPIs. I mean, if you're looking at client KPIs, the first thing that I would look at if you want to look at the health of an account is the AR, or the accounts receivable. So that's all the stuff that's outstanding and unpaid. I would make sure to look at that split by patient versus insurance. So look at your insurance AR separate from your patient. And then you want to pay attention to the buckets, like 0 to 30, 30, 60, 60, 90, et cetera. In general, every practice is different. Every specialty is different, but I think the MGMA standards are less than 25% over 90 days. So that's the measuring stick you want to use. Like, you want to make sure that you've got less money outstanding that's older and obviously more that's newer. That's a good indication of the health of an account, but not necessarily the only indicator, because I can just adjust stuff off and make my AR look good, and that's not a healthy account still. Charges, payments, adjustments would be the second report I would look at. Just chronologically looking at the ratios between how much money went out, how much came in, and how much got adjusted. Important thing there is to keep an eye on the ratios. You should have a larger charge bucket than payment bucket, and your payments and adjustments should be relatively level with about a 30-day drag. So making sure that you're monitoring that chronologically and seeing if there's any, irregularities and finding out why that might be and making sure there's an explanation. First pass resolution rate is a really common KPI in billing, which is basically how frequently do the claims that I submit get paid on the first submission. It's also called clean claim rate in many respects. So that's a indicator of accuracy, which is going to have a downstream impact because payments come in faster, AR keeps trimmer. I mean, I could give you 20 others, but I'd say if you want to stick with the KPI number of 3, that's probably where I'd focus.
Let's summarize everything that John has mentioned. So the most important KPIs are accounts receivable split by patients versus insurance, how much money went out versus how much came in and how much got adjusted, and what's your clean claim rate. you mentioned that you're using 50 different systems. So, and I'm sure there are some billing companies out there that do the same thing. So how can you make sure that you stay efficient if all of your clients are using different EHRs and, you have to be using different solutions, or is there a better way of handling this?
It's a challenge. I think last industry report I saw, it's like 85% of medical billing companies are in less than 5 systems. And the reason
Wow.
for that is internal operational efficiency. Like software is a learning curve and everyone's different. So the easiest answer is don't do it. But the downside of that is you can't be as flexible for clients. And our outlook is that we want our clients to really own their system and own that choice. And it's our responsibility to steward their data where it's most efficient for them. So we just have a different cultural outlook. But
Mm-hmm.
if you do make the decision to use multiple programs, obviously segmenting your labor force so they're specialized in different programs, don't have everybody know everything. Making sure you've got a really tight training and development program. So you've got a process for if you need to coach somebody up, not only know where the videos are, but have an actual process to walk them through. There's a concept called DORAGI that I actually learned recently for learning and management. It's like do, organize. I'm not gonna remember the acronym, but it's basically teach it, give somebody a task, watch them do it, reteach it, and then watch them do it again. So it's about making sure they're actually actively learning and not just watching a video or watching somebody do something. They have to kind of get their hands dirty. And for a biller, that makes total sense because you have to
Mm.
go through the clicks in the system.
Yeah, right. And do you coach all of your employees?
I'm a terrible teacher, so not me, but we have a wonderful director of training and development, David. And then we try to work with, the vendors like you all. You guys have a great library of resources and, you're always willing to work with our team if we do need some extra coaching. So making sure the vendor you choose is willing to lean in and not going to just send you to a website is helpful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because you don't want to be left behind, with all those videos and like asking this question to the void and nobody's answering you. So,
They're always informative, but they're not the most entertaining.
can you give 5 tips and tricks for the billers who are watching us for somebody who's just starting out their career in billing?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is to question what you're being told by the insurance companies. Make sure that you find a way to be your own barometer because disinformation, misinformation is literally this entire industry. So making sure that you're your own, source of truth and be confident. The answers you're going to get are going to be wrong more than not. And then the only rule in medical billing is there's an exception to every rule. So just making sure you don't hop on the phone, spend 30 minutes and get an answer that doesn't make sense and then have to do it again the next day. That would be the first tip.
Hmm.
I think another learning curve for me was if you're looking to grow your billing team, making sure that you're able and willing to kind of release a little bit and delegate. That can be a really big rate limiting step because you're probably going to be the fastest of your group if you're starting to grow a team because you started your business, you've got the aptitude to grow a business. So being willing to let go of tasks and really let your team work with you. Otherwise, again, you're going to be your own rate limiting step there because you can't do it
Right.
all, even though you're
And I
faster.
feel like this is common for a lot of the business owners, right? Letting go of things.
Yeah, it's delegation is a challenge and a skill set for sure. Um, the other thing I would say, and honestly, probably one of the biggest lessons for me was getting from, I think when you think of like the phases in a business, getting from like lifestyle business, which sounds negative, but it's really not. Like at a certain scale in a company, when you're just starting out, you really are just kind of hand to mouth, right? Like if you're just getting going and you're one person, you get to a point where you've got people and you want to scale and you want to start to grow, but your expenses start to grow and balloon a little bit with that. And so getting from that lifestyle business to kind of like mid-market level, there's a lot of planning and execution that needs to go into financial business models and foundations, and just like business economics. You can fake it till you make it, but it's going to catch up to you at some point. So take it from somebody that made many mistakes on the way. I think having a plan as you want to scale is incredibly important.
Hmm.
So we're at 3. 2 other tips for billers. I think similar to number 1, but don't take no for an answer. One thing that we do that's a little bit different is we just will not write off claims if it's not an NCCI edit, not a CO 45. Like we literally do not write off claims if we know that we should win them. And there's a lot of times where you can push something along and it gets to being denied 2 or 3 times, go to the corporate office, go to the Department of Insurance, go to the patient's employer and have them push at the HR level. Like actually fight it and own the claim for your team and for your client and for your patient, and you're going to have happy customers because you're taking that ownership for this not just being a transaction and a workflow, but like actually impacting somebody's life because it actually does. Like people get bills that have to pay money, so it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fifth thing I would say, I mean, just to bring it back to the software, I think making sure that you've got an efficient system, making sure that you've got an efficient program and an efficient process that you can operate in, because service businesses are low margin, generally 25 to 35%. And if you're moving 25% slower than you could be, that's going to cut right into your bottom line. So making sure that you're in a comfortable system and you're able to move quickly and efficiently and accurately is hugely important.
So to summarize everything that John has mentioned, here are 5 tips and tricks for anyone starting their career in billing. The first one, question everything you're being told by the insurance company. Second, delegate. The third, focus on the business side and hire a professional if you need to. The fourth, don't take no for an answer and always fight. The fifth, choose the right software. All right, those are great tips. Thanks for providing them. Let's talk about recommendations for the medical practices who are outsourcing their billing. I think we've actually kind of discussed that already, but like just to summarize everything that you've mentioned for the billing, for the medical practices who are looking to outsource their billing, what you should pay attention to the most.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to outsource, again, contract terms need to be favorable. Where's the work being done? Who's doing what? I think those are 3 big things. If you've got a billing company and are not sure about where things are at, I think looking at the communication that you get, the cadence, are reports taking a month to get back to you? Are you getting responses to emails when you have questions? Are they willing to set a meeting up with you and just kind of talk through things? That can be very revealing on if there's a problem that's maybe being swept under the rug or they're too busy. So I think that's important. If you're looking at making a change, also looking through those KPIs and getting to look under the hood. Just about any company you're looking to change to should be willing to look at your reports and give you a second set of eyes. So, you know, having somebody outside of the person doing your billing look at the numbers and give you a second perspective can be super helpful as well. And then if you're in-house, you know, again, making sure that you're monitoring monthly reports, that you're producing those, that you're showing them to the boss, which is typically the doc. Because the difference between a good and a bad biller, if you're not talking to the client or they're talking to the doctor or talking to the customer, is who knows? There's no communication.
Right.
So
And
making sure you got to make it approachable.
yeah, and how can you make that communication better between the doctors and you and the patients? Because this is complicated. You know, communication is never easy.
And especially with billing, like if billing was
Yeah.
easy, there wouldn't be billers. Doctors would just do it themselves, and that's
Yeah.
clearly not the case. It's not feasible or tenable. It's really hard to make a complex thing simple and make it approachable, but I think talking to the client or the doctor about what they like, do they like spreadsheets or graphs? Are they visual or do they like the numbers? And then making sure that you limit or distill the amount of information that you're handing over because they've got other things going on like patients and life, and making sure that you have a workflow to consistently and persistently follow up. So ask for those monthly meetings, have a pre-scheduled time. It's going to get missed occasionally. Follow up and reschedule it. Like making sure that you make it a priority is the most important part.
Excellent. Perfect. So let's also talk about the special offer that John you have today for, you know, everybody who's watching us, who's looking to outsource their billing and who might be interested in your services.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, we do offer what we call a free KPI scope. So kind of in line with what we were talking about. And this is for any practitioner of any specialty. And you don't honestly even need to be interested in working with us, but we can run your numbers in your system and just give you a little report. I can give you a leave behind just to kind of give you an example of it. But it's our way of just giving back to the community is, you know, here's a second look at and an honest look at what's going on, because there's no point in me overselling that, because then you're going to come and expect me to do better than I can do. So it's an honest outlay.
Mhm.
Outside of that, we've got first month free, and we can do 20% off our rates if anybody's interested in following up with us. So
Excellent. Thank you so much for this generous offer, John. And thank you so much for the conversation today.
yeah, thanks for your time and thank you for having me.
And now let's move on to the special offer from Remedly. We'd like to offer you a free onboarding and 20% off for the first 3 months if you're using Remedly's RCM together with the EHR. If you're interested in capturing the special offer and learning more about Remedly, please reach out to us at sales@remedly.com.